excellent wife, who can find her? For her worth is far above jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She looks for wool and linen, and works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar, and she rises while it is still night, and gives food to her household, and portions to her attendants. She considers a field and buys it. From her earnings she plants a vineyard. She surrounds her waist with strength and makes her arms strong. She senses that her profit is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hands grasp the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor, and she stretches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies belts to the tradesmen. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She watches over the activities of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and bless her, her husband also, and he praises her, saying, Many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the product of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Happy Mother's Day. This is a special day for moms. They will be able to get some praise for all that they do. Now I've got a note to say here. When you read that chapter that we just read, it's actually a question. If you look at it, it's because it's very hard for women to come up to that standard, wouldn't you say? I mean, when we look around at the mothers that we've all had, and they had their good points, and they had some not so good points. And so, when you look at that, it's kind of discouraging in a way if you don't have that wife. Amen? Yeah. Boy, these guys are quiet. I'm telling you what. They are so smart.
No, he grunted.
He grunted? Oh, okay. All right. But the reality of it is that not everyone has had a mother like that. And that's a really, really tall order for mothers to become. But that certainly is a challenge for our mothers of today. But I wanted to talk about a little bit of what importance mother's role is, and especially when it comes to serving God and being an example and teaching her children and raising her children. The value of a mother cannot even be underestimated. There's an old saying that says, the mother that rocks the cradle, the one that rocks the cradle rules the world. And so much that is true, because sometimes the mother's love that she demonstrates to her children will affect their outcome in the future. Unfortunately, many times those mothers don't do the things they ought to do, and because of it, we end up with therapy and everything else that goes with it, trying to overcome the things that our mother maybe put us through. And I'm not speaking necessarily any mothers that I know, but I know that I've seen some that were questionable. But I kind of want to get back onto the value of mothers. At least something to be wanting to become. Mothers have a great effect on their family. Really, the mom sets the tone and protects the children from the father when he comes home from a bad day at work. You know, so mothers have a big role, have a really large role. But take a look at some of the mothers in the Bible that had to deal with a lot of different things that went on in their lives. And we look at the first one, and that's Eve. I know a lot of times Eve is credited for bringing sin into the world because she was disobedient to the Lord. But she suffered because of the things she had to go through with her children. Can you even imagine having a couple children and have one of them kill the other one? I don't think we can realize the pain that she must have felt and had to deal with in her life. Or we can look at Rebecca, Isaac's wife, who had a tremendous struggle with her two boys in the not showing partiality. But we know in the end she did show some partiality and helped her favorite son to receive a special gifts from the husband of the blessings. But she wanted to do what was best, really what she thought for the family. The other one that brings to mind is Jochebed. Those of you who don't know who Jochebed is, she was the woman that had a child under Egyptian bondage. And it was commissioned by the emperor that all male babies would be thrown into the river Nile to drown. But she chose to do the best she could of hiding her son. And she did as long as she could, to the point that she's afraid she'd be caught, that he would be thrown in the river and drowned. So she made a little boat for him. And she put him in that little boat and then put it near where the princess could come down and bathe. And I don't know if she shoved it toward that way or what, but anyway, God's providence brought the princess of the Pharaoh, his daughter, to see the child, and she immediately knew who it was. She immediately knew that it was one of the slave children, that a mother was trying to save it. And God's providence is that she fell in love with the child, felt compassion to it. And then the interesting part is that Moses' sister went up to her and says, "You need somebody to take care of that child?" And she said, "Yes." And she says, "Well, I know a woman that, has recently had a baby, and she could raise the child for you and nurse it and everything." She says, "Okay, go get her." Well, he went and got her mother. And so Jochebed actually lived in the palace with Moses and the daughter and raised up her own child in Pharaoh's house. The interesting part about this is the influence that she had upon Moses. Even though the nation they were in was full of foreign gods, she trained it up Moses to believe it, know who he was, that he was an Israelite, and know that God providentially brought him to this place, and that there was a great task that he was probably going to have to do. And so she trained him up. And there's an old saying, "Train up a child in the way he must go, and even when he's old, he will not depart from it." And how influential this mother was for her child, to the point that he raised up against those that were unruly against his own people and actually killed a slave driver. Of course, he ended up in the wilderness for a long time, about 40 years, and then God said, "Hey, I've got a job for you." Sends him back. But I want you to know, it wasn't the father that trained up that child, it was the mother. The influence of mothers are so important. It's important for us to realize how important they are. In Matthew 23, verse 37, Jesus makes a comparison of a mother hen, saying, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how many times I wanted to gather you like a hen gathers her chicks." And if you've ever seen chickens, and then when some threat comes out, the little chicks run to the mom, and the mom covers them with her wings. It's kind of cute to see. But that's showing depiction of what Jesus wanted for for the Jewish nation at that time. But yet he uses a mother chicken to describe how he was as God's son, wanting to gather them and protect them. It's always interesting that I've heard of battlefields where men are injured in battle, and if it's severe, they'll cry out to their dads. No, not at all. They always cry out for their mother. Here they are, grown men, kids for the most part, a lot of them. But the reality of it is, they know the mother will be the one who will comfort them. And so they cry out for the moms. It's so important to mother's teaching. In most cases, of course, today things have changed so much because mothers have worked and they're out of the home, out of the contact of the children, so they don't have necessarily as much contact as they used to have. So we send them off to school, and hopefully they're taught by someone that has godly principles. Unfortunately, that's not the case in today's public school systems, because they've basically restrained them from hugging the children. They've restrained them from teaching them the Word of God. And so there's a lot that's been lost in our generation that wasn't the case in the past. I remember when my mother went to work toward the end of, I guess, my life, as far as a child goes, and I remember sitting outside waiting for her to come home. And why did I do that? Well, she was a nurturer. The house felt very empty when she wasn't there. Of course, my mother was one that used to sing around the house. And I often wondered, why she did that. And I just thought, she's had more peace than a lot of people. And it was kind of comforting just to know she was there. If you look today in Bible school programs, I remember at Marshall we had probably 70 kids we were bringing in. And if you were to go down to our Bible school, I was the Bible school director, and I had to be responsible to make sure the material that was being taught was, good, sound, biblical. And I remember working with those women, and I was so impressed because they were so much in tune to what the children need and how to teach them. And if you've ever seen a Bible school program, one thing you're going to note very quickly is from nursery all the way through up to the teens, it's all women teachers. And I tried to break that mold, and so I went down in a kindergarten class. And don't laugh. I did my best. I went down there and I'm like, how do these women do it? I mean, these kids are like, and they would have them all in control and have them, doing a little coloring, and they'd be teaching them a little lesson and stuff. And I'm like, I just didn't have it. I just didn't have that ability. And so I moved up to the older kids. I moved up to the 5th and 6th grade. And then after I talked to them for a bit, I called John Torrey and I said, hey, come on down here. I want to have you work with me. I want to help you be a teacher. And then 2 weeks later, I said, hey, I got to go up and teach. I was teaching an adult class, and so I'll be back. He uses that a lot on me. He goes like, he never came back. They were a handful. I dealt with the bus ministry because I was on the bus and all that all the time, so I had enough of kids. They are a handful. And so mothers are special. They have the ability to be able to teach them. And I'm so thankful for that. How else can we have a class or have a lesson about mothers and not bring up Jesus' mother? Jesus' mother had to be really special. She trained up Jesus as his young years. And here he is, he's the Son of God. But yet she's obviously training him because we know that he was an obedient child, even at the age of 30. Because we know that when there was a wedding feast at Galilee, that he was called on to make some more wine. She obviously knew that he had some real abilities. I mean, and yet Jesus responds to her, we look at it, boy, that's kind of unruly. He says, like, woman, what do I have to do with you? Basically, he was saying, it's not my time yet to reveal myself, who I am. But after a thought, he was obedient to his mother. That's something children today need to understand. We need not to be disrespectful to our mother. And it's hard sometimes. Let's pull over here and park this for a moment. I give this lesson with somewhat reserve, because I know there's some mothers out there that should have never been mothers. They have done terrible things to children, to their own children, to the point that those children are struggling in life today, trying to gather together what it means to be a mother, what it means to be a wife, because they've had such bad examples. And so I don't want to bring down those who've not had that example and think that you need to honor them with all, you need to honor them only because of your birth. Outside of that, their example may not have been that great. And so a good friend of mine, John Clayton, used to have a saying. He says, no one's worthless. If nothing else, they can serve as a bad example. You know, and so I guess I say that to realize that we need to be able to define what really a great mother is. And if you're having a struggle with that, then go to the Bible and look for guidance there of what a great mother would be, and become that. Because I know so many people fail in so many ways. Okay, back to the lesson. When you look at Jesus' mother, and you look at the honor that Jesus had towards her, we're brought to the scene at the cross. If you remember the scene at the cross where Jesus was up there, and obviously he's in definitely pain, and he's, knowing that he's going to die soon for the sins of the world. And he looks down and he sees his mother. And he looks there and he also sees John, his beloved disciple. And he says to his mother, he says, Mother, see your son. And son, see your mother. Basically giving the responsibility of taking care of her for all the rest of her life. We don't have a lot more on that after the fact, but we do know that John had a nature that's very concerning and very loving. And so he demonstrated his love to the Savior by taking in the mom of his life. Okay, where am I at? I'm somewhere here. Okay, Mark chapter 3, verses 33 through 35. And he answered them and said, Who are my mother? Who are my brother? And looking about at those who were standing around him, he said, Behold, my mother, my brothers, and whoever does the will of God is my mother, my brother, my sister, and my mother. So sometimes, we forget as a congregation or a church as a whole that we have many mothers and we have many brothers and many sisters. Jesus wanted to make sure that they understood, even though we have mothers and brothers and sisters in this real world, that truly the most important ones are the ones that are obedient to God's will. This incident happened when Jesus' mother and brothers actually came to visit him when he had just performed a miracle of healing a guy's withered hand, and they were trying to get to him and like, you know, you're going to get yourself in real trouble here going against these Sadducees and Pharisees and all these. So, you know, we're trying to get to him and save him from himself. And then when the crowd said, hey, your mothers and your brothers are out here, his response was, you are my mothers, you are my brothers, and you are my sisters. How important that is. If you're someone that is needing help, motherly advice, you see someone like that, please give them the time to be able to help them and lead them to Christ. In our world, the definition of the Bible gives of what a supermom is, I guess I should say. Realize that's not the case in the world. Realize there are so many people out there that need that motherly love and that concern about their eternal souls. And some of you could be that today. Never forget whom we are. If we were to look in Psalms chapter 139, verses 13 and 14, when I get there. David understood how God had so blessed him. And if nothing else, verse 13 says, "And thou dost form my inward parts. Thou didst weave me in my mother's womb. And I give thanks to thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are thy works, that my soul knows very well." So all of us have a mother. By the way, has anybody here not had a mother? Just check. But we all had mothers. And at least show honor to them for the fact that they gave birth to you. That God gave them the ability to create a great and wonderful child of God that you can become. I know that's kind of an odd Mother's Day lesson, but I'll be honest with you, I went online and did some study of my Mother's Day lessons, and they were pretty sugary and all that, and I know that's not always the case. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to encourage mothers to become all that you can be. Let's take a little passage from the Marine Corps. Be all
Army.
you can be. Is that the Marine Corps?
Army.
Army, okay. Be all you can be. And so I'd encourage mothers to be all you can be. And if your children have already grown up and gone away, there's plenty of children around that you can be a mother to and encourage and be a support to. This is not a